Hey everyone, today I'm going to do something a little bit different, and we're not going to be making music, but I'm going to be building a module. We're going to put together this one from AI Synthesis. It's the AI24X VCF filter. It's an 80s inspired filter. The website describes it as based on classic filters from the Oberheim synths and sequential circuits, so I was kind of interested in it. If you're subscribed to my channel, you probably know that I've been recommending getting into DIY building for modules and in a lot of my videos. There are many reasons why you might want to start doing this. Number one, it saves you a ton of money. Number two, this channel is always focused on education, learning new skills, and learning how to build a module is one of those things. It's just such a great skill to have, and it's really nice to have that connection to an instrument. I mean, there's so many reasons why you should get into this, but the last one is that it's just ridiculously easy, especially since so many companies are making kits where they put all the parts that you need right in one package. I've only been doing this for about a year or so, and I came at it with extremely minimal soldering experience, and I've built a ton of usable modules, and I'm getting better all the time. So the reason I'm making this video is because one of my Patreon members reached out to me saying that he was really interested in getting into this, but was kind of nervous about it, wasn't sure if he could do it, and didn't have any soldering experience. This filter in particular seemed to resonate with him, so I decided to get it and just go through it. I'm gonna make this video painfully slow, so I'm gonna really explain in detail each step of the process and show how it's done. So if you're interested in getting into this, this might be a great video for you. You can even watch it as a companion video to actually building the module. I will say that I would not recommend starting with this filter as my very first soldering project. I would either choose a module like the Molt or a simple mixer or something like that, or you could get something like this. This is a little soldering toy project that I got on Amazon for my 8-year-old son. He put this thing entirely together on his own. He soldered every joint and it works fine. This cost about 15 bucks. And honestly, the directions were worse than any kit I've ever built. And it has all the same types of parts that you would see in a module. So I'll put a link to this one in the description, but there's tons of other little tiny projects out there that are dirt cheap. And if you can put together this, you can easily put together a Eurorack module. Just one little disclaimer before we get started. I'm not claiming to be an expert solderer. And as I said, I've only been doing this for about a year. This is really about showing you, if you don't know what you're doing, you can just jump in. It's not that hard. And if you do have any advice for techniques on soldering that you think I might benefit from, please let me know in the comment section. This channel is all about learning, so I can learn too. Okay, so with all that said, let's put together this module. Okay, so just a quick overview of my setup. I've got right here a magnifying glass that I'm gonna be using. These parts are really small. I've got these little clippers. I'll put links to all this stuff in the description. This for cleaning off the tip. My soldering iron is right here and it's up there. I'm setting it to 350 degrees. I've also got this fan here to suck up all of the fumes. This is my soldering pump. This is for fixing the solder sucker. This is for fixing mistakes. I would highly recommend getting this good one. I started off with a really cheap one like this, and it's just terrible. In fact, I think I'm probably just gonna throw it away. I'm using leaded solder. I was given advice from someone that this was easier for beginners to work with, so I just bought it. And I mean, it came with just so much. I haven't even gotten close to using it all. Many people recommend using gloves with these. I don't. I've heard various opinions on that, whether or not it's dangerous. But I really don't do this that often, so I figured that as long as I'm not rubbing my eyes and I wash my hands thoroughly after using it, I'm okay not to use gloves. But you know, do it at your own risk. And lastly, There's eye protection. I don't use eye protection because even though when I'm on camera, I'm not wearing glasses. I wear reading glasses for close-up things like this, and that's good enough for me. So again, do it at your own risk. If you don't feel comfortable taking those risks, then, you know, buy unleaded solder, wear eye protection, open windows and things like that. The room I'm in is fairly large and I'm not that concerned about fumes, especially with my fan that sucks everything up. So that's where I stand with things. If you see lights go on like this, it's coming from my magnifying glass that I'm looking through. I'm gonna try and keep it off because I think it's better with the camera. So on the AI website, you can get this build guide. It's all the steps, the different parts, and where to put them, how many of them are, and some notes. There's also an illustrated build guide on the computer. I have that up over there, and that has pictures and things like that you can follow along too. But I like to print these off and kind of check things off as I go. So real quickly, I'm just gonna go through the kit and make sure that we have everything sort of get organized, maybe put things in order. So there's a lot of stuff here. Let's just go through it. We have a power cord. I'll set that aside. Everything is labeled right here. These are the trimmers, potentiometers. So those are the, and we have some capacitors, trimmers, that goes later. This is the PCB and the plate, stickers, business cards, right there. Power header, knobs. So right here, I've got the first 5 or so packets. Set everything else aside for now. Generally speaking, what I've heard a lot and what it says on the build guide is that you want to build from lowest to highest, and that just makes it easier to solder. What's great about these kits too is that they tell you the order in which you should approach it. So you don't even need to worry about that as a beginner. But the first step is we're going to break this into 2 parts. They come connected. It's perforated, so it's actually pretty easy. That's it. When you look at these PCBs, there's actually markings on them. So on this side, and I hope you can see this, I'll try and zoom in as much as possible. You know, there's no markings. On this side, there are markings. You can see that there's all these outlines. And so that means that that is where our pieces are going to go into. On this side, you can see that there are a couple of markings here, and that on this side, there's lots of markings. So we are going to solder all of our stuff on this, except for these 2 headers, which are going to go on this side. So everything's clearly marked. If you look closely, it even says like 100K, and then it has a letter and a number value. This is why I use the magnifying glass. This one says 100K R14, and on our build guide, you can see it says 100K, and then it has all these R and number values. So that's how you know where to put everything. It tells you exactly where to put it and what you should put there. So that's that. All right, so let's get to it. The first step is to put on these 1N5817 diodes. There's 2 of them. Now these, as it says in the build guide, is that orientation is important. So you need to be really careful about which way you orient them. Now there are pictures on the website version, but if you look closely here, you can see, just like a AA battery, that it tells you which side. There's a little stripe here, and it tells you how to orient them. And if we look at the actual diodes, you can see, I hope you can see that, you can see it's really small, but you can actually see that one side of these has like a silver top. I mean, it looks like a Duracell battery. There's clearly like a positive or negative side. There's an orientation to it. So you just have to make sure that you match that up with the PCB. So you take these little tapes off, and then you want to bend the metal pieces. Try to get it as close to it as possible. and then enter it through the holes oriented in the same exact way. This one happens to stick all the way through. You might have to bend these a little bit to get it to stay. I'm going to do the same with the other one, and we'll solder them at the same time. Make sure that the orientation is the correct way. Now see, this one falls out when I turn it over, so I'm just going to go ahead and bend these so it stays up. And you could bend them all the way down to... That way they stay in place. They're nice and tight against the board. Put it down, and now we solder. So you can put a little bit on your tip. I'm actually going to turn on my fan so that it sucks up all the smoke. And I'm going to put this down on the hole, on the metal part of the hole, touching the part that sticks up from the diode first, and then I'm going to put the solder down. Lift up the solder, lift up the iron. That's pretty good. Next one, put the solder iron down, let it heat up. And that's good. And that's really all there is to it. You kind of want to check them, make sure that there's, you know, no cold solder joints. There's pictures online of what those look like, but honestly, it's really not that hard. So when you're clipping them off, if you just clip them like that, they kind of go flying, hence the eye protection. So I just kind of put my finger on the end and clip, and that way they just fall. I think my clippers are getting a little bit dull. And that's it. Those look good. So our first solder joints are done. And at that point, so as you can see, this video is going to be kind of long because there are lots of parts, but that's really all there is to it. So on my build guide, check. Next step, 91K resistors. Here they are. It's clearly labeled. You could also use a multimeter to check these. If you want to use the illustrated build guide online, you can. They have pictures where they point to where all of the places are, or you could just use the build guide to kind of look through and identify them. Gets a little bit easier as time goes on because all these spaces get filled up. But we're going to do the same thing. Remove the tape. These resistors do not have an orientation. You can put them in any way you want. So I'm gonna put them all in, or at least the majority of them in first, and then solder them. So these ones are a little bit easier than the diodes because they the legs are much thinner. Again, it's labeled 91K. What's interesting about this too is I have messed up a couple of builds. I was able to identify where the problem was. And on every single one of them, it was because I put something in the wrong place. Either I just misread it, or I don't know what happened, but like I know one time I put a 14K in place of a 144K. Just kind of made a user error like that. So I've actually never had an issue with it actually being a problem with the the soldering, which I would have expected as a beginner that would be my issue, but no. It was just simply putting something in the wrong place, even though it's all totally clearly marked, and as long as you take your time, you know, you can avoid those types of dumb errors. I'm just going through. There are 6 of these. I'm being especially careful to put them in the right place. We're going to bend those down. Take one more. This one actually goes on the other board. So we'll put that one right here. Let me just make sure I'm doing that right. I need the magnifying glass to see this, but in fact, I would say all of the mistakes that I made were before I bought this magnifying glass. So I would strongly recommend it. It makes it so much more pleasurable to do this. It's actually really, once you get the hang of this and it's not so nerve-wracking, it's actually quite a bit of fun to put together these modules. Adds a whole other layer of value to buying these. This kit, with shipping and everything, only cost about 80 bucks. So that's pretty awesome. Again, I'm putting the soldering iron down, then applying the solder. These resistors, because they are thinner, are significantly easier to solder than the diodes. The legs just heat up so quickly that you can just easily apply the solder. So as a beginner, one of my first questions was just like, how much solder should I put on? And generally speaking, you want to kind of aim to fill the hole and have that little cone shape. But that's pretty much it. That's all you really need to do. And that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and clip all these. These are the ones, because they're so little, they just fly up if you don't hold them down. Which again, you know, if you're not wearing safety glasses, just make sure to hold them down a little bit. All right. Got 2 parts done. Oh, actually, let me solder this joint on the other board. Now, there are ways to tell these apart by the color coding here. I don't know that system, and if I got these mixed up or something, I would just use a multimeter to kind of figure it out. But that's why I just do one step at a time too, so I don't need to bother with that. Okay, so 220K right here. Let's see. Again, the picture is really helpful for finding these, but it does get easier as the boards get more populated, because You know, because there's just not that many spaces to put things. So I'm just going to keep at it. All right, let's do this. So as you can see too, I'm starting to speed up a little bit. And, you know, you got to be careful of that for not making mistakes. But I also was going really slow throughout this whole process. And, you know, as you get more comfortable, so like this video is going to feel, it'd probably be much longer than the amount of time it would actually take to build this module if you were doing it on your own, or if I was doing it without making a video. I'm trying to really take my time and go through it really slowly, which is actually probably a good thing, because then I'll minimize my chances of putting something in the wrong place or messing up. And there we go. Put these on. Again, I just love this fan because I mean, I don't smell anything. Smoke isn't going up in my face. It's just really nice. I guess the recommendation is to do it near an open window. I'm not, but whatever. All right, 220 done. 100K. Now there's a lot of these. So these, I might not put all of them in at once. I might just do a set and then go from there. There are, let's see, 16 of them. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to do a chunk first. And we'll start with this board and put these on, and then we'll go from there. 100K. 100K seems to be a pretty common resistor value. Put this one in. Here's another one. R14. If I didn't have these pictures, I'd probably be checking off, you know, R14, R11, but the pictures make it pretty easy to figure out where all these go. Let's do a couple more. And just, you want to make sure that nothing's touching. Like these, the legs get pretty close, and if you're not really perfect about bending them, they could touch, but it's pretty easy to make it so that they're not touching, as long as you're just kind of mindful about it. All right, let's solder these in place and then we can place more of them. One, two, three, four. And again, this is the kind of thing of just like, the more you do it, the more you get a sense of just sort of how to balance this and how much pressure to put with your soldering iron to kind of keep it steady. You know, just like what I did here, of like I rolled the soldering iron a little bit with my thumb to get it to have more contact with the leg so it heats up faster. And I mean, that's just, I think that's just experience. You know, the more you do it, the more it works, or the easier it gets. When I first started soldering, I kind of wished I had 3 hands, but as I've gotten used to it, you kind of figure out ways to balance things and have the parts work for you. Just like anything, I guess. All right, let's put some more on. We are still finishing out the 100K resistors. Another one over here. It's kind of like a Zen activity. And really get into the zone here. I should be having ambient music playing. Perhaps I'll put that in the video for all of you watching, if you're still watching at this point. I mean, really, there's not a whole lot to say. It's just so, kind of... Oh, see, I messed up a little bit there, and that one I'm going to want to fix. I just kind of bent it so that it was sticking out, and I mean, it probably wouldn't have been a huge deal, but you know, you don't want it to touch anything else. So some modules that you build are, you know, do not have a lot of... Okay, so I just realized that my camera had run out of storage, so I replaced the SD card. I'm not sure how much I missed. I'm still doing the 100K resistors. All right, and we are done with the 100K resistors. I'm going to check them off the sheet. Next up is the 1.8K resistors. There's 5 of them. So there's one. Looks like there's 2 on this board. Okay. Go ahead and solder these in. We'll do the other board. There's 3 here. And this is a prime example of why you want to start with the lower stuff first, because as you can see, there are going to be jacks or potentiometers here, and it would be really hard to solder in the middle of all these if you put the tall stuff in first. So that's really why you want to start with the lower stuff first. Go. Now I'm going to solder these in place, and then we'll be done with that step. That'll look good. Okay. 1.8K resistors, done. Okay, so next we got to do the 6-pin headers. So these headers are what connect the 2 PCBs together. So there's 4 pieces in all. The long pieces, one's going to be in one PCB and the other is going to be in the other. And then they connect together like that. And so that's going to be how information gets transferred between them both. So it doesn't matter which one you want to put in each. As you can see right here, they're going to go right here. You could do female to female. You can put the female ones there, the female ones there. It doesn't really matter. Now these are a little bit tricky because like on this one with our resistors, you could just sort of put it upside down. But as you'll notice, when you stick these in, you know, it kind of flops down a little bit. So I'm going to show you a little trick for doing that. But first, let's make sure that I'm putting them in the correct way, because this is where I've messed up before. So here's a good example. I don't know if this is a mess up, but you know, typically you see how there's a white outline on that. I would imagine that would mean you'd solder them like that, but it looks like from the pictures, oh no, wait, that one is accurate, but on this side I think these white things should actually be over here, because it looks to me like it would go like this. So one header is going to go right here. And then this one will go like that, and the power header is there, so we want that part exposed, and then all of the knobs and everything are going to be here. We want that part exposed, and then these will connect together like this. And that's how they're going to connect. So when doing these, there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but I'm actually going to connect them and connect them to the module, making sure that everything lines up. And get it in. These pins are kind of alternating, staggered, so that it holds it in, and it can make it a little bit challenging to get it in. But once you get it in, it should be pretty snug. And this should line up with this. Great. I'm just going to confirm that that's the right way we want it. Good. Now you just got to be careful when you're soldering it, because you can see it's not connected yet. So I'm actually going to solder this side first, because that seems to be more wobbly. Again, I'm way overthinking this. This really isn't that hard, but I'm trying to go as slow as possible. So what I do with these kind of ones too that are a little bit wobbly is I solder one joint in. So once you have one joint in, it's going to be flush. And then you can sort of squeeze on it and apply just a little bit of heat to it. And if it's not flush, it'll move into place, and then you let it cool, and now that little solder joint will hold it in place so you can do the rest. But I'm going to go ahead and do this side. Oops. My soldering iron has a auto shut off, so it was shutting off because it was taking too long. Now, just to make sure it's flush, I'm going to hold this and I'm applying pressure and adding heat. I can feel it sort of close up on it, and now I can release it and it'll stay in place. So now it's pretty solid, but I'm going to do one on each of these other sides so it's totally solid. I'm going to do the same thing here. See, I felt that go down a little bit once I heated it up. It's really helpful with the power header to do it that way. Oops. This one should be fine. Oh, no. See, it closed in as soon as that loosened up. And now when I release it, it'll let go and it'll be totally flush. So now I can just go ahead and solder all the other points and it'll hold it on solid. Super easy. You just got to touch that pin with your soldering iron, touch the other side with the solder. And the magnifying glass is really, 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 really helpful. And in fact, it's kind of hard because I'm doing the video and I'm trying not to be right over it because of the camera, but normally I would just be leaning right over the top of it. It would be much, much easier. But this is working pretty well. No mistakes so far, I hope. Again, probably the worst mistake I've ever made making a module was right with these, it was on a VCO, and right with these power headers, I soldered them to the wrong side so that both boards were reversed. So I had to use my solder sucker to open it back up to get the pieces out, and in the process, I broke one of the little rings that you solder to, so it didn't work. So I had to then solder a wire to connect the point to the right spot. Okay, so those are all done, and as you can see now, you can go ahead and separate the module. And when the time comes to put them back in, should go in nice and smooth. Like that. All right, our headers are in. Check. See, now things are going to go really fast because those resistors, there were just so many of them. And now we're kind of onto these easier parts that have just like one or two pieces. Like for instance, this step is only one diode at D3. And the D3 diode is right there. This one, orientation does matter. And you can tell because on the board there's a little line here. Again, it looks like a Duracell battery. There's right there, there's a little white line. And on the diode, there's a little black top. And you just want to make sure that the black top lines up with this line. Go ahead and put that one in. This one doesn't seat quite as nicely as the resistors do, but that's okay. It gets really close to that other resistor. So just make sure that you are trying to keep it as tight as possible. Now we'll solder that point in. Again, it gets really close. It's like I can almost barely even tell if I was not using the magnifying glass. It'd be hard for me to see if it was touching. But I can tell with the magnifying glass that it is not touching that resistor. Alright, we are flying now. Making lots of good progress. Step 7 done. Step 18, IC sockets. So let's see, there's it. Here are the IC sockets. So these are the computer chips. This is what, you know, when you hear that a filter is based on a, like, whatever chip. I think this one's the 3340. This is what they're talking about. So there's two parts to these. There's the socket, and then these are the actual IC chips. And the reason that they have these is that these are not heat resistant. So you don't want to solder these directly to the board. So what we're going to do is solder these to the board using these pins right here. And then we're going to insert these into here. Now this can be a little bit tricky as a beginner, because you got to kind of line up the legs, and these legs bend really easily, but it's fairly straightforward. But right now we're going to set the chips aside, and we're just going to do the sockets. The other thing is that orientation matters, and right here on one side of them you'll see a little tiny notch, and you have to line that up. So as you can see, there's one here. Yep, the CEM 3320, it looks like, is the chip that's being used. So so on the board there's a little notch there at the top of this one, and that's got to line up with this little notch, and then on the chip itself there's a little notch. So the orientation matters, but it slides right in like that. Now this is another case like I did before, where we solder one joint and then we push it in. And that's because, like, right now it may not get soldered totally flush, and when I push down it kind of flops around a bit. So I've soldered one joint, so now it's staying in place. But as you can see, or I hope you can see, it's not flush to the board. It's sticking up a little bit. It's kind of wonky. it would probably still work, but we want it to be flush to the board. So I'm going to push right here with my thumb and push here with my finger, so I'm applying pressure to it, and then I'm going to heat this up so I'll feel it kind of pop through. And then when I pull up, I just let it cool for a second. Now I can release the pressure, and now the chip, or the socket, is totally flat and completely flush with the board. So it's totally flat. And because I did that one, it's kind of holding it in place, so now it's much easier to do the rest. Those look really good. Great. Let's do the other one. Make sure that so there's the notch is at the top. And then I'm going to stick this in, and we're going to do the same thing. Although that one's seated pretty well. I'm still going to do it though. Soldered one point, pick it up, heat up the solder just so I know that it's flush, let it go down. Perfect. And now I'm just going to go ahead and do the rest. Now just be careful that you don't, I probably would solder these after doing the IC chips, because these headers actually will melt if you touch your soldering iron to them, they'll melt. So I probably, in retrospect, I would have put these on after doing all these, but whatever, that's where we're at. So just be careful. And that's it. All right, IC sockets are done. I'm just going to leave the chips off now. I'm not sure if I should put those on, but I'm not. But let's go ahead and put the power header on. Power header is where you connect the module, or the power supply to the module. So it looks like that. And we're going to put them on in the same way, where we solder one point and then you know, and then push it in tightly. You can see again, orientation matters. Just look at the silk screen and then I'm going to just solder this joint in. So I did one, so now it's attached, and actually that looks pretty good, but I'm still going to push on it, heat it up, yep, and now it is completely flush with the board. So now I can just finish it. Oh, I already did that one. Okay, those look pretty good. Great. Power header done. The 10 UF capacitors, or caps. These are the 10 UF capacitors. There's 3 of them. These are polarized. The orientation matters on these. And so you can see on these there's like a gray stripe going down one side of them. And so the gray stripe is negative, and on the PCB board, lights too, the longer is positive, and they usually mark the positive side. So you want to stick the longer leg, the positive leg, into the positive side. There we go. And I'm going to push it all the way down to the board. Mark it off. There we go. So those are good. Now I'm just going to solder them in place. It gets a little bit harder now too, again, because you're kind of balancing things. But it's the kind of thing you just sort of figure out how to hold it with your pinky or whatever after a while. And there you go. Caps are in. All right, now the 0.1 UF caps. Now I notice he has them marked 100 NF, but I believe those are the same. I'm not 100% sure, but when I look, okay, I just confirmed 100 NF is the same as 0.1 UF, so we're good. I was right, but it's just nice to know it. So these do not have a correct orientation. You just slide those right down to the board. Okay. Alright, now I'm going to solder those in place. And those all look good. Alright, we're rolling. Got those in place. 330 PF capacitors right here. There's 4 of them. Okay. These are a different color than what's in the build guide, but it looks, it's hard to read what's on there, but looks like it might be right, but either way I trust it. Slide those in right there. One. We are getting really close now. These have little indentations on the bottom, and you can slide them right down into that and it will hold it in place. You don't, I probably don't even need to bend them like this. I'm actually not going to bend this one.
see what happens. It's a little bit hard to get through the last part, but snaps right into place, and then you can just leave it. Okay, I'm going to solder those points again. Be careful of the plastic header. If you touch that, it will melt. There you go. Now I'm going to cut these. Step 12, done. Jacks. Now these, I'm actually going to break from the build guide, and rather than do the jacks, trimmers, pots, and all that stuff, I'm going to do the jacks and the pots at the same time. And that's because when you put these on, it's a good idea to put the board on, or the panel on as well, so that you know that everything is totally lined up. If you don't do that, then it might be hard to get the panel on. Now, I mean, I know AI synthesis, the holes are nice and big, so it's not that hard, but some other ones are have been tight before. So I'm just going to go ahead and place all of these in. And there's a little thing. So on the jacks, there's this little thing that sticks out. It's the ground. And so you'll notice right where the silkscreen is, it's pretty straightforward, the orientation to where you need to put that in. So I'm going to go ahead and just place all the jacks. There we go. And there's one up here. Now I'm going to place the trimmers as well. So there's this, let's see, this is a B10K. So it looks like they're all B10Ks. So I think the two bottom ones, I need to look at a picture. Yeah, so I've done this before too, where I've put like a big pot where there was supposed to be a little pot. So these tall black ones are supposed to go in here, and they just slide. Sometimes it really helps to use tweezers or something like that to kind of bend these in a little bit. But once you get them in, they should lock into place like that. And yeah, I'm gonna have to bend these in a little bit, just a little bit. Sometimes you have to straighten out the little things too. That's in. And that's in. So now that they are all in, you can take the panel and put it on top, just so that you know that everything lines up correctly. And I'm actually going to go ahead, I don't need the washers right now, but I'm going to go ahead and screw these on just to make sure that everything, or at least a couple of them, actually, I guess if there's nothing to solder below, I could have just put the washers on and everything, but I'm gonna go ahead and leave it like that, and that should be fine. So now that that's on and everything looks good, we go ahead and turn it over and solder all of those points. Now these big ones here, I don't think you need to fill the hole. I usually just do a little bit just to connect the side that it's connected to. I'm not sure that those actually do, maybe they're grounds, but putting a little bit of solder holds them in place at least. But these ones, these 3 in a row, are the main ones. Those are the ones that need to be soldered. From my understanding anyway. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. Those are good. Now the jacks. All right, and we're good. That part's done. Unscrew these. I don't think that there's anything to solder under it, but I want to put the washers on anyway. So we'll take that off. Yeah, I could have totally... Oh, I missed the jack. That's... That was another mistake that I had done on an early build. I built it, and my first VCO actually, I built it and I could not get one of the pulses, or one of the pulse wave, I think it was the pulse wave, I could not get it working. And I checked all kinds of things, and it was just because I'd forgotten to solder the jack to the pulse wave. So that's probably rule number one, is make sure that you actually solder in all of your pieces. And there we go. All right, everything is good now. We'll set that aside until we finish the other parts. Jacks, pot. We just nailed a handful of those. Now all we got to do is the trimmer. I think this is the last bit of soldering that we have to do. It's exciting. This is going to go on the back, and this is how we adjust it to calibrate it. Let's see. Right here is the only spot open left. One is circled, so that means orientation matters. Or at least I think it does. And from what I can tell, which makes sense, is that the one with the circle is where this little screw thing goes. Now this is another one that, because I want it to be, well, it'll probably be fine, but I am going to solder it in place. I'm going to solder one joint, so, and then I'm going to push on it, heat it up, and you see it popped right back into place. Now when I let go, it stays in place, and I can solder the other joints. The holes for this one are super tiny. Looks good. Actually, you don't even really need to trim these off. They're up a little bit high. I'm going to trim them off anyway. Okay. Last step, we need to put on in our IC chips. So these, just make sure that the little notch that's here at the top lines up with the little notch that your socket was on, and just double check that that notch is lined up with the notch on the silk screen. Now these are kind of tricky to get the hang of. Sometimes you just need to bend them in just a slight bit to get them to line up. It's really hard because you don't want to, it's one of those things, you don't want to push too hard because then they bend. You also have to push hard enough that they go in. That one actually went in ridiculously easy. But just be careful, but do not force it, otherwise they kind of fall apart. This one I can tell that the legs are kind of like sticking out like that, so I'm going to have to bend it in just a little bit. And if you can do it so that they go straight down, then they just sort of slide in pretty easily. You just got to be careful because they really bend easily. And again, make sure that the slot is lined up. Yeah, this one's a little bit harder. I have to bend it in a little bit more. Takes a little bit of effort. A little bit of finesse. Again, you don't want to push too hard. And good. I'm in. And once they are slotted, you kind of know, but just, you know, make sure, kind of like peek around, make sure that they're all the pieces are in there. But that's what it looks like. All right, got those in, got our trimmer in, and now we are going to put it together. Let's go ahead and attach this and this. And put this part on. Now I will put our washers on. Actually, you know what? I bet you there's... I'm actually kind of surprised that it didn't come with little screws to kind of hold it together. Unless I just missed it somewhere. I don't think I did though. But no, whatever. Sometimes there are these spacers just to kind of hold it together right here and right here. Mine didn't come with any. I think I have some. I have some somewhere, but you can buy these little things that will connect up. There's these holes right here and right here that will screw in both ways and hold it in place. And usually I think they come with them, but I don't know why. I'm actually surprised it didn't, but whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, see, it's just kind of loose. I don't know. That's a little bit too loose for my taste. I'm gonna put one on at some point, but I'm gonna get through this build first and then attach those. really hopeful that I made it through this whole project without making a mistake. That'd be great. Cool. So that's it. We got to calibrate or test it and then calibrate it. The knobs, let's see. One's a hex screw, one's a regular screw. I'll be right back. Okay, so to attach the knobs, go. It's on pretty tight. All right, so I should note that I was having trouble with this hex screw. This is standard hex screws. I have a metric one, but I don't know where it is at the moment. So I'm just gonna go ahead and skip that part for now, and we're gonna do a connectivity test. So for this, we're gonna take our multimeter, set it to the one that will give off a beep when you connect it. And what we're looking for, here we can turn off the fan now, is to see if there's any issues with continuity. So when you hear that beep, that's good because you want to touch the, I can't remember which one's which, but I think that this one's, so what you want to do is touch the top one on the right and then touch all the others, and it shouldn't beep when you touch anything except for the one on the top left. Like that's the top, beeps, none of the others beep. So that's good, that means that they're not touching. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. That's the top ones, and then none of the other ones are beeping. So we are all set there. And then I'm going to do the bottoms. And then the ones in the middle I think are grounds. So that's okay. So you want to do the top and the bottom and just make sure that there's nothing that beeps, and then you're all good to power it up. So the next part is I'm going to go ahead and power it up, and we can calibrate it using our trimmer pot on the back, and also just kind of hook it up and see how it runs. Okay, so I've got the module, oops. Got the masher almost powered up. Let's plug it in. Now, just to give you an idea of what I was talking about with those missing pieces, and again, I don't know if I don't know if they just forgot to include them, but this was my AAE iSynthesis VCO build. It looks awesome with these vintage knobs I got from Thong too. I'm gonna get some for this as well, but if you'll notice right here, to connect these two boards, there's this plastic standoff with two screws on each side. And I was expecting those, especially since it looks like there's holes for them right here and right here, but there isn't. So this is a little bit loose. That's okay. I have some somewhere in my shop or something. So I'm gonna be all set. You can get them, you can get a giant box of them from Amazon for only a few bucks. So it's not a huge deal, but I'm just kind of surprised they didn't come with it. So all right, that's the sound I'm getting from my oscillator. Let's see. Let's just first see if I get any sound in. We'll go into well, it sounds like it works. Turn up the res. If I turn up the res. So there you go. So you can calibrate it on the back if you want to do volts per octave to track the resonance. I might do that on my own time, but right now I'm pretty satisfied. It works as a filter. I'll probably add some vintage knobs to it, and then and I'll do a sound test or something with it later. But that is how you build the Filter X. So hope you liked this video. If you made it to the end, congratulations. And don't forget to like and subscribe, all that stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and, you know, build a module or something.